I do worry that some of the people that have actually really been fighting alongside the British forces and risking their lives and are at most danger are going to be left in Afghanistan.
Hello and welcome to Spectator TV. I'm James Hill and I'm joined today by Larisa Brown, Defence Editor at The Times. Now, the big story that's been rocking the government for the past 24 hours or so has been the revelation about a number of leaks involving the names of Afghans who worked with the UK during the post-2001 invasion there, and then this was leaked out in a massive file. Larisa Brown is one of those journalists who helped apply for this to be released and has been part of the efforts to remove the super injunction on the press, which was lifted on Wednesday. Larisa, tell us about your involvement in this story and how it came about.
Well, I first found out about this nearly 2 years ago now. I was on maternity leave at the time, and I found out that there'd been a data breach involving thousands of Afghans whose lives had been put at risk as a result. And it wasn't until after that actually there was a super injunction put in place that stopped the reporting of this information. When I returned from maternity leave, I called the Ministry of Defence and said that I knew about all of this. And I was basically hauled into the MOD, told to bring a lawyer, and there we were served with the injunction. And this meant that from that day we weren't able to discuss the case with anyone. We couldn't even reveal that there was an order in place because it was a super injunction, and obviously that's an extraordinary legal power. It was completely unprecedented. A government has actually never used a super injunction before. And then we ended up in the first hearing in January 2024, so that was about 18 months ago now, and from then on, Times spearheaded the legal fight to get the super injunction lifted.
And what's so striking about, there's a number of different striking elements to this, but of course, in the reaction to this, the government is not saying they will never use this again. The super injunction could well be a weapon that the government uses repeatedly for such stories in the future.
Yes, I would think that because this case was really quite unique. They used it because they claimed there was a risk to life, and obviously there was a national security issue as well. And I would hope that this wouldn't happen again. It seems like it was a really huge error by one individual. It was a mistake to obviously email this data list to Afghans who were then able to pass it on to others. One would hope that this is a unique, unprecedented case, but clearly, yes, you're right. There has been some questions asked of government ministers about would they use it again, and they haven't ruled it out.
This was an extraordinary operation, which was, I think, the Times reported the largest peacetime evacuation in the UK's history. How many Afghans have been taken out under the scheme which was developed in response to this data leak?
It's quite complicated because there's 3 different Afghan schemes, and the government set up a secret scheme during this process called the Afghan response route, and this was enabling the government to bring Afghans who weren't eligible under the other 2 public schemes to come to the UK. Now, I think probably the key figure here is that in total, 24,000 Afghans who have been affected by the breach are already in the UK or will be brought to the UK. And that means that then you've also got more than 75,000, 76,000 people affected by the breach that will still remain in Afghanistan that aren't going to be brought to the UK.
And of those 76,000, do we know what's sort of happened since the data leak went public? Have there been any sort of style retributions or revenge attacks by the Taliban since this information got out there?
I've been messaging quite a lot of Afghans in the last 24 hours. Obviously, a lot of them most of them should have got this message yesterday that the government sent out that basically told them your data was breached in February 2022, and you've got to be careful about who you speak to going forward and take precautions. And they obviously didn't know about it before then. And at the moment, I'm getting messages just generally. There's a sense of panic and fear. They don't actually know what to do. They're not clear exactly what personal information was on that list, and nobody can answer the question: has the Taliban got that list? Because the government doesn't know, and nobody can be sure of that. So I think a lot of them are pretty terrified at the moment and wondering whether they need to move homes or what the future could hold for them.
And in terms of the original leak, which I believe occurred in February 2022, but was not known about for another sort of year and a half, um, was anything possible to stop this happening? I mean, was it to do with the MOD's sloppy use of data? Was it human error? What basically is being done to stop something like this from happening again?
I think part of this is that you can't go beyond the fact that it's human error, and one individual has sent an email twice, which and they thought that they were sending a list of 150 names, but in fact they were sending this database of 33,000 cases, and clearly that was a huge mistake. What I think some of the questions that I'm asking at the moment is, shouldn't there have been something in the MOD that would have stopped a file like that from being able to be sent? Actually, I had a couple of defence experts, tech experts, that were saying that that shouldn't have been able to have happened. And I know that they've put in measures since then to make sure it doesn't happen again. So clearly there's part human error. I mean, I'm also looking at is there someone else that's to blame because they didn't put the security measures in place that there should have been for the MOD.
And I mean, in terms of going forward, what is the future of the sort of evacuations? I mean, now it's all been completed. How is it going, the sort of assimilation about life in the UK for the Afghans who've come here as well?
There's still going to be more than 5,000 Afghans who have been affected by the breach to come to the UK, and they'll be coming presumably over the coming months, because the scheme that they're coming under has actually closed, but these Afghans have already been given invitation letters, and John Healey, the Defence Secretary, said he wanted to honour that. So they're still to come. In terms of the Afghans that are here, I mean, there's tens of thousands of them all dotted around the country. I actually wrote a book, The Gardener of Lashkar, about one of the families that were brought here, and they're quite interesting because they're in Scotland and they've had real ups and downs. It's kind of brilliant and exciting to come to the UK. You're not facing being hunted down and killed by the Taliban, so you feel relatively safe. But then it's really hard because some of these Afghans are being put in communities where there aren't any other Afghans and there isn't a local mosque, and they're feeling isolated in some cases. So I think it's not all the sort of perfect dream everyone necessarily has been hoping for, but it is a chance to escape the Taliban and live safely.
I mean, Larissa, I've read your work. I was a fellow male graduate trainee at one point. You've been covering this for years now. I mean, in terms of going forwards, some people like the Liberal Democrats have called for a full national inquiry into this scandal. What do you think, as someone who's been very close to this issue for a long time, reporting on it, helped break the story with the Times? What do you think should be done now?
I think for me, I just want to be really clear about who they've decided to bring and who they haven't, and has that been a fair assessment? Because we were told that a lot more people were deemed to be at highest risk, and so how have they decided who these last people are that are going to come? And originally they were talking about bringing 42,000, but now it's going to be 24,000. So how have they managed to decide who are the lucky ones and who aren't? And I think I do worry that some of the people that have actually really been fighting alongside the British forces and risking their lives and are at most danger are going to be left in Afghanistan. And actually, one individual I'm speaking to today, whose case just breaks my heart, is still in Afghanistan. And I've not been told that he's coming. And that just makes me feel, well, it does make me feel very sad. And I want to sort of continue to highlight these cases.
Well, Larissa, we look forward to reading your reporting in the Times. Thank you for joining us on Spectator TV today.
Thank you.